I think
But-
let's start with 7130 and work our way down if that's all right with everyone.
I think
And
that's
then-
what we did. That's what we've done in the past.
Yep.
And it's the only
Let's
really
try
way to
and-
handle it. And we,
No.
Tina is our major general in this. She keeps track of what we've done and what we're going to do in the future, as far as presenting it to the board. Tina, you're still here, aren't you?
I am.
Okay, good.
You just
Actually,
bailed.
it's John's job. He's the chairman. Right?
I might be the chairman, but she takes care of the real work so that we don't get misled.
Oh, I see. Well, yes, I would, you might lead us astray. That's for sure.
Okay, 7130 is entitlement to attend. The major,
Turn this light up. I can't see a thing.
Hmm.
That
it
just
sets,
seems-
it sets the dates or the ages when the students are to attend, and it really some wording changes, but not any
No.
philosophical change.
No.
Emancipated minors are in there, and I think it's much clearer than it was in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, they just updated it.
Any changes or
Well, I think right from
observations?
the beginning, the very first line, subject entitlement to attend age and residency. Then the next little piece there, entitlement to attend, that should be the heading of the next paragraph. It's a format.
Yes, it will. Just because of the way the track changes are, everything will be all aligned right.
Okay. Then you go down to the third paragraph, evidence of a prospective student's age. You got a little typo in there, presented in such the form. So I think we're going with, we're eliminating suches and using those. We don't need both. See it?
Oh, yep.
Okay. And I still not sure I understand the difference between a child or a youth.
Oh,
mean,
we
really.
never will. The only
Okay.
ones who understand are the children and the youth.
Well, is it a lawyer
We're
thing?
too
or-
old to understand.
No, is it a lawyer thing or what's, why do we use both?
I don't know.
It may just simply be for the redundancy factor, just to break it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see children, sometimes you'll see the word student. I think it's just a matter of semantics.
Covers all bases. Maybe.
I guess. Yeah. No, I'm fine with this policy.
Okay,
So this policy
go-
will be recommended to the board as is.
Do you want to put this on the agenda for Tuesday for a first read?
oh, I think so.
Okay,
Okay, 7133. Temporary housings. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I got, this is again, I wrote down child or youth. I don't know, it makes me crazy. On the second page, where we talk about migratory children, so that's paragraph C. Yeah, by the way, my vote would be, we need bigger print. Cheaper, some of this was an eye test. Okay, paragraph C, page 2. So, when I got down to so C3, and my deal here, John, is if we're trying to make these for our district, or if we're just going to say it's for any district and not worry about it.
Well, it's for both. Paul, we have migratory students here, and they are classified with this definition. They always
Okay.
have been for 40 to 50 years.
Sure. How about paragraph 3? From one district to another, yeah, okay, that makes sense. In a state that is comprised of a single school district, well, that's irrelevant, isn't it? I mean, we're only one state.
It is,
Okay.
but
Or resides
it
in a
is,
school
I guess,
district of
what's the
more than,
difference if it's one state or not for us?
yeah, or a state or a district of more than 15,000 square miles. Yeah, I don't know what's the square mileage of ours. So I'm saying, is this relevant? I don't, not a big deal to me, but if we want to make it R for our district, then I think these could be deleted. Just the
Well-
last 2 sentences there, a qualifying move of either when the child is moved from one district to another,
Right.
that's required. The
That's
next 2
required.
sentences to me are irrelevant.
But
I
I
think
think
they
clarify.
define it in case you have a neck, I don't know how to say this. Go ahead, Cinda.
I was just going to say that I think many times the attorneys want that language in
Yeah,
in
That's-
general, so that if somebody's reading the policy, it clarifies the difference, say, between our district and like Florida's district. Their districts are huge. They take
Yeah.
in counties.
So that's what I'm saying.
And I think it's just for clarification purposes.
It's not a big deal to me. I just thought if we're gonna make
Yeah.
them pertinent to our district, we could eliminate those 2
Yeah.
sentences, which again, aren't relevant.
They're
Okay,
no,
not-
I would go with Cinda's definition on that is that that is for clarification and in case someone had to appeal, that it's there and you can say that they took care of it in the definitions.
it's fine. Hey, just for Mike, at least for my edification, go into the next paragraph, pre-kindergarten or Head Start. We had a change this year. Something about Head Start, preschool, what? We eliminated one or the state eliminated one? How did that work out?
And there was a funding situation because the Wayne Cap didn't have a certified teacher. So in the past, what they were working on was, there was a lot more latitude. So this ties into like your budget question from the budget presentation a few weeks ago. So it might have us slated to receive $689,000. So if we were to achieve that with full enrollment and we qualified in both locations, we could get that. So the preschool stuff earlier this year was just, they didn't have a certified teacher running the program over at Huron. That was the issue. So next year, we're making the push to bring a 3rd section of UPK on campus. So that will kind of eliminate that issue. So we're gonna have
Okay.
3 sections, here in-house. They'll still have the 3-year-olds over there. But for us, 4 and 5-year-olds will be on campus. That's our hope. And we think we've got about 50 kids. Anticipate 50 slots. So it's about 10 grand a student we receive from federal funding with that.
Yeah, it's not relevant to this policy, but I just, after I read that, I went, oh yeah, well, what got eliminated? What got changed? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was a political thing because Janelle Cooper from Wayne Cap came over and met with us, and we talked about some of the dynamics from the state that had changed.
Yeah, I remember now.
John, oh, okay.
I guess I was muted.
Yeah. So we're set on that one then?
Let's go to, let's see, this is it's paragraph N, but let's find out where that starts.
And
So it's under the title of the McKinney-Vento Liaison for Students in Temporary Housing. Not even sure what page that is. Then it's the following page.
Talking about the one in blue ink,
We need the paragraph,
talking about N,
yes,
the red.
yeah. So is there, again, this isn't a big deal, but you read this thing and you go, what are they talking about? Assistance with obtaining any necessary immunizations or screenings or immunization. You go, what is that?
Oh,
I don't have it there.
where are you?
Yeah. I'm at
He's
the
on page
7334.
4, the bottom.
Where?
Page 4, the bottom, the fourth page of the policy.
Oh,
Under item N was coordinate with a nutrition in red, and then assistance with obtaining.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys comfortable with that? I mean, I read it and I can live with it, but why don't we just say immunizations? Immunizations or screenings.
I think they go ambiguous again, just to be more of a broad scope approach to things. So, you know, the other health records is provided to parents or guardians. What's the point of contention?
It's just, it says any necessary immunizations or screenings. Okay, I get that. Or immunization. Is that necessary?
Oh, the second word of immunizations there?
Yeah. But they do that twice in this thing and it's kind of like, you know, to me, I have to stop and read it and go, what? What's the difference?
Yeah,
Well, the
yeah.
difference is one's singular and one's plural, but doesn't plural kind of cover the world? Or is it lawyerese that we have to live with it?
Well, there aren't any strike throughs, so that must be how our policy was written before.
mhm.
So we must have been living with this.
You know, if we want to revise, let's do it. If we don't, I'm fine. I'm just.
So Tina, we can strike that second immunization off, right? You have the,
Yes, yes, we can.
I think let's do that. Let's do the or immunization. And just leave the or other required health records is provided to the parents or guardians of the students in temporary housing.
There's one more place in here that's written that way. I don't know that I highlighted it, but if I find it, I'll let you know. Because I remember reading it twice, just going,
I want to go back, wait a minute, go back to that before you strike that. When I read it, I read necessary immunizations or screenings as one thought, and I read immunization and other required health records together. Now, it might be necessary for a kid that is necessary for the kid to have that immunization, but not required by the state to go to school.
So I see it as two different things now that you read it that way, Cinda. So
Mhm.
obtaining necessary immunizations or screenings is one part. Then
Yes.
immunization or other required health records is the second part. So if you put the word immunization record or other health record, that would be two things. I was just trying to look through the Erie thing as well, because, you know, honestly, for Ann to go through these, I'm very comfortable with what she left in there. So when you read it like that, it's either the immunizations and or screenings. And then the second part is the actual records. So if they need a copy of those records, that's the second part. So if they're homeless under McKinney-Vento, we would provide assistance for getting those records. We would also provide assistance for those screenings or the immunizations.
So
So
should there be a
I think
period there?
that's, well, I think it should stay.
The word required really should have been first. after the second immunization
Yes.
word, that, required. Because there is a difference between necessary and required.
Well, not only that, but it's in terms of, again, if they're actually going to get the shot versus they're receiving the record.
True, true. I think it's okay the way it is.
Should there be a period there
Where?
after the screenings, the first word screenings?
No, because there's no comma after the first immunization. Immunization or screenings goes together. If they weren't going together, there would have been a comma after immunization.
It seems to me it could have been immunization, screenings, or other required health records, but I'm fine with it. It's not a big
Well,
deal.
but it's two
Well,
separate things. The
It is
immunization
true.
is one thing. And the screening is a second thing. So if it's an eye screening, vision screening, hearing screening, that's an act. If it's the shot, that's an act. And then the other piece is, so if they don't leave with those records or they don't have copy of those records, that's the second thing. So it's two separate entities. So theoretically, a student could, receive their immunizations or have screenings, or they could need help with the actual records and retrieval of records. So many times if they're homeless, I would assume that, there's the necessity for them to have someone facilitate that, because they're probably not grabbing those as part of their possessions.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a matter of sentences though, but anyhow, I think we could live with that.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's fine.
I see there,
So is that
depends how
page
you want to
four?
read it, doesn't it?
Tina, that was page 4?
Yes.
Okay, then let's go to page 7, folks. And this is a format thing. Middle of page 7, paragraph H.
Can you I'm on the computer. I don't have a hard copy. Can you
Oh.
give me
Is
what
it
your
the
number
range?
is?
Arrange for a child to receive free school meals?
Yes. how
That's
can we get
before
this done?
tuition reimbursement, Cinda.
I'll find it. I got it.
Okay, so the
Yeah, I
request for
see.
records, again, that should be the beginning, the header for the next paragraph.
Yeah.
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 That all will be changed. It's the way that gray block is on the side if you have the hard copies. So this is just the edited version. When we clean it up, it'll all be straightened out.
And the clean version that she sent it is straight.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Oh, gosh, sorry, I forgot to count pages. Let's see, that was 4. 6. Okay, so it would be page 8, Cinda. I don't know how to help you get
Or
there.
just tell me your titles and
Dispute resolution process. It's right in the middle of the page. Page 8 of the hard copy.
okay. Got it.
Again, it's a format thing. Just make sure we get it right. Let's see. There's A, and then there's 1, 2, 3. The 4 is kind of buried in there. Of course,
Because
Yeah,
of the
okay.
strike throughs.
yeah. So again, formatting, just make sure we get it right when we. In fact, yeah, 4. You got it, Tina?
Yep.
Okay.
This is a long one for sure.
Sure is.
Hmm.
Anything else?
Yeah, it's just another format thing. I think I think we've agreed the formatting probably works itself out when you get the correct copy. I'll look, so these will be, if we agree, this will be for the next board meeting, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I'll read over it again to make sure that the formatting comes out.
Well, the board is going to get this copy, right? Because they want to see the strikeouts. Or
I'll
the,
adjust the formatting before I send it to the board with the
Okay.
track changes.
all right.
Great.
So it's
Great.
still a first read. So I would suggest, Paul, that you wait until she sends it out to the board. And then run through your list of formatting. Because on a first read, anything can be corrected.
I
We
think at
agree.
the board meeting, you make a note of it, verbally. That's what we're gonna do.
Up to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Policy 7134,
All right.
education of students in foster care.
Oh, yeah, yeah. They added that having a designee in each building.
Yeah.
to Make sure that was covered, yeah.
Yeah. Again, kind of a format thing. After so Cinda, where it says school district of origin, like I call it page 1. Right at the bottom of the,
Right at the bottom,
Got it, yeah. Mhm.
F. Yeah.
okay, then the very next, the next, it's a sentence. I think it should be paragraph G. It's a definition, and that's what we're talking about is definitions. And then the next one would be H. They're all definitions, the way I read them. School district of origin, school district of residence, and then school of origin.
Yeah, that should be bolded,
Yes.
shouldn't it? Yeah.
Bolded in paragraph G, and then the next
Yeah,
one, school of
probably.
origin, should be H.
Michael, who typically would be a school building designee? The principal or
Likely the social worker,
the social worker? Mhm.
but in terms of, so Kathy Grasso is, technically a K-12 social worker. She would be our point person, but the principal obviously would be very involved in this. Stuff comes into Melanie as the, superintendent secretary as well, because we do get billed from time to time when students are out of district placed for that reason. But typically the social worker would be the point person, just because they tend to get the ins and outs, and usually it's cleaner when they're working to support parents in that fashion.
I think in here somewhere, there's also a designation. We have to have this on our website. Something in here at least.
Was on one of them anyway, John.
Yeah, it's. Does it suffice that we publish our policies on our website now? That's been a change since years ago when they mentioned that it had to be in a handbook or some printed format.
Mhm.
Now, if you have the policy under policies, is that not handled by that, or do you have to have a separate spot for it?
No, I think the policies cover it. I mean, Ann didn't say that we, were deficient in any areas.
Good. That's what I would assume that too.
I got just a general question. So definition, child or youth in foster care, and then it gives a definition and it uses a local commissioner of social services or the commissioner of the Office of Children and Family Services. And you go down to paragraph C and it goes foster care means, and it's much more involved. So is that all okay? Is that fine the way it reads? Now, it seems a little bit redundant, but I can live with it.
Yeah, I think again, there's strength in ambiguity in terms of if this were ever questioned. So more along the definition in terms of, saying they were removed for a period of 24 hours. Unfortunately, I've experienced that where students are in one placement, for a Monday, and Tuesday or Wednesday, they get pulled out and placed into a different setting.
Right.
So I think that's okay to leave in as it is.
Okay, so paragraph C is captured, or I guess maybe paragraph A is captured in paragraph C, that local commissioner and commissioner of the Office of Children, that all fits okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
in terms of placement like that, in extreme cases, CPS may show up outside of school hours. They may go to a home visit at 4 o'clock and determine the situation requires immediate attention, and we may not know about it, until the next day.
I'm fine.
I thought they were trying to cover all their bases too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Try to define everything that could happen.
especially with legalities.
Yes.
Yeah, and that may bring me to the next question. Let's see, page 1, 2. So the bolded paragraph is designation of school district and school.
Okay, got it.
So paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4.
What page are you on, Paul?
Page.
It's the second page, John, down towards the bottom.
Second page. Okay.
You got a hard copy, John?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, and actually,
Thank you, Tina.
yeah. Okay, but I really want to go to page 3. Okay, to the
Okay.
4th paragraph under that. The one that starts out where the school district of origin or a school of origin that a student was attending. I just wondered this because it talks about the state of New York, and I just wondered if that whole paragraph was even necessary. Oh, yeah, it's about located in a contiguous state.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't wrong, but can we remotely have that situation?
I think it's a legality. They're covering their bases.
Yeah, it just, and again, I'm okay with it, but if we wanted to make it more personal for our district, I'm not sure that's relevant.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I guess the big piece to keep in mind is when we talk about relevance for our district, that goes back to what we had discussed in the fall about making sure we went through all the ones that were legally mandated to have.
Mhm.
I think as the policies relate to New York State, the consistency across the state is really important. And that's the piece where I think having Ann go through this first, and if she saw something that, we should strike through completely, she would have done that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think that the fact that this goes through the state ed law book as well, and the policies kind of aligned to that, is the reason why there's so much ambiguity. Because again, in terms of legal matter and precedent, it's all up to interpretation.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. I just thought,
Right.
if we were trying to make it North Rose-Wolcott School District, that was probably irrelevant. No big deal.
Based on Erie 1, their recommendation, it was a new policy in light of the newly enacted education law. So that's why we got this policy. So
I
it's
think
based on
many
the-
times they put what we would consider state ed policy into school district policy, because let's say a parent is the child is in foster care or there's somebody dealing with a child in foster care, they might not know enough to go to state ed and read that too. So they put it in this policy. So if they look at North Rose-Wolcott's, they've got the whole picture.
I think with the commissioner's interpretation as well, you want to have some familiarity with what's consistent across the state, so they can compare from one district to the next.
Mhm. Okay.
Again, I'm fine. I just didn't think it was
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah.
We go down to transportation responsibilities,
Okay,
the second paragraph.
Yeah.
So this, my question here is, so the last sentence, the one that was added, the district and the LDSS must biannually
Yeah.
prepare a local transportation agreement for students in foster care that outlines local transportation procedures. Well, going along with Mike, that's pretty ambiguous. My question was, in what form? Is there a form we submit? Do we submit it to anybody? Is it a handshake? Is it a telephone call? I don't know.
No,
but
I
isn't it
think,
something you do anyhow, just on a routine?
Yeah, I mean, of course you would. I mean, if you have any
Right.
kind of responsibility attitude whatsoever.
Well, they want to make sure everybody does it. Because
You
maybe
okay with it,
there's
Mike? Does it
little
need to be,
someplace
does it
who
need to be
didn't.
more detailed, Mike?
no, it doesn't, because I mean, if you think about it, we approved these for, private school transportation. We set up different agreements. There are things that come in frequently, like, if we have a student that goes to a private school up in Pittsford, let's say, we work on, healthcare agreements with Pittsford, and we sign those on a regular basis. So they all go through the business office. And with respect to the transportation with McKinney-Vento, it's pretty prescriptive as to what we have to do and how we document it. So
Okay.
I'm fine with it as it is.
Yeah, and then it's just like kept in a business office or kept somewhere, right?
Yep, yep.
And I'll bet you it's never asked for.
Probably not.
I think we
Not
can,
to my knowledge. I mean, it may be in terms of how we get reimbursed ultimately and what Bob prepares in terms of transportation aid and stuff like that, but I'd have to ask him in particular as to whether, it's turned over on a regular basis or just when requested.
Well, it's even biennial, so I mean, it's,
Mhm.
Yeah.
the only other comment I had to myself was another one. It's another paragraph about the contiguous state stuff, and if we need to have it in there, it's fine.
so 7134 is okay as
Yeah.
hopefully formatting changes and,
Yeah.
okay. The board will be thrilled to read all those.
Won't they?
Well, that's probably enough. You know what? As long as that McKinney-Vento one is, that's probably enough for one board meeting. That one by itself is probably enough.
Yeah,
Uh,
luckily that is taken care of by our professionals. And it's with kids, and I think the idea is you don't want to slight a kid.
Of course, yeah.
So I think that's the driving force, at least in our district. So 7240, this is student records, access and challenge. This is getting to be more of a challenge than it was when it used to be a pencil and ink on a piece of paper.
As I was reading through this, I had a couple of questions. It talks about parents having access, and maybe I didn't read it carefully enough. I questioned parents do not have access to say birth control information on a student, nor do they have to have gender identity information. So I, is there an exception in this policy? Did I miss it?
Good point.
That eliminates those? Maybe there's other things too that parents do not have access to. I know I was appalled when as far as, if my daughter's on birth control, I'd kind of like to know that.
read that
But it's not, if the daughter doesn't want your mother to know it, they don't have to. So I just wondered if, when they're saying access suddenly,
I read gender somewhere in there. Cinda.
did you? Well,
Well, either in this one or one of the policies.
well, yeah, there's another policy coming up.
Yes, there is.
Gender.
Then it depends on the student's age and the legality of the parent or guardian or.
Yeah, and John, we're not consistent with that, so I don't know whether it should be understood or whether it should be spelled out. Sometimes we say parent guardian, sometimes we say parent. I questioned that. And Cindy, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take us off page.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, those things that you're saying are exceptions or. Let's see, yeah, because for the purposes of this policy, directory information, but not limited for this, I was aghast at how many things we could give away. But what limitations? Where are the limitations?
Or is it one of those deals that if it isn't mentioned in the policy, then it's automatically figured that it's not
Not releasable?
accessible? Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. And truthfully, I did not go back through to with a magnifying glass trying to find it either.
So, but I think that the one piece that, if you read that first and don't keep reading, I agree with you, the reaction should be swift. But I think when you get going down further and you realize the agencies that we're releasing that information to are typically the legal system,
Yeah.
The foster care component we just talked about, military recruiter, for an audit, or if we're doing something with, a court order, things of that nature. So that to me, typically, whenever a request comes in, like for any of that information, there's a conversation had and it's explicitly stated what the purpose is for anyways. And we still make sure we put our ducks in a row and we have all the things in order so that we're not putting too much out. And, in a case like that, where if it were something touchy, we'd run it up the food chain to our council anyways. But I see what she did,
Yeah.
put a lot of commentary in there with respect to what we could do, in terms of legally and what she struck through to say, that's no longer necessary.
I was really surprised at the amount of information we could give out on a limited directory.
Well, and again, keep in mind the agencies that we're talking about, the military court, it could be for a study, could be for an audit. If somebody came through and audited our credits that students leave us with, that type of stuff. Typically, it's not just Joe Public. We're not turning it around and just putting it out there en masse. We had a request come in the other day for some information, and, you know, it came to Scott, Jason Shetler, and myself, and, you know, basically said to Scott, you got to get parental consent before we can put that information out there. And that was for a picture, a name and a picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Good.
Well, on page 2, the disclosure is limited for uses. I mean, she defines is limited
yep,
for
Right.
student recognitions, event programs, yearbooks, like rings.
And
You
I guess, Mike, you can limit it further too. You can always, in other words, you don't have to give everything underneath the purposes of that policy.
right. Usually,
Right.
you know, it's just what's requested. And if we have questions, we'll ask for further clarification.
Yeah.
So that's oftentimes the case when we deal with the legal system.
And they also use the word may in there. So the district may disclose directory information
Correct.
for the various things that are listed there
Which allows
as
us to also say,
examples.
which allows us to also say may not.
Right.
Okay, do we what? So again, is there a need for consistency with parent guardian, or is that irrelevant?
Well, again, I think that it covers you in a bunch of different ways. If a student's placed in foster care, or, you know, if they're with their parent, you know, I think that kind of, it goes hand in hand. Again, if the way we read this one, 7240, having just come off of McKinney-Vento, you know, I think
Yeah, it makes a difference.
correct. So I think that there's strength in keeping it with both in there.
Well, then should we be consistent? Because there's places where it says parent, and then there's places where it says parent guardian.
But a parent guardian could be a foster parent, or
True.
it could be a parent that's biological.
No, I think what
And-
Paul means is sometimes it just uses the word parent. Other times it uses the word parent guardian.
Oh,
I think Paul is wondering, shouldn't they all be parent guardian?
Right. Yeah, in the first paragraph of the document, under number district, it says 1, parent/guardian of a student under 18 as an example. And then she struck out the word parents or guardians and non-custodial parents. So
Then
she
if you
did
go-
make the change. I don't know if she did it consistently though.
Yeah, because then if you go right to the bottom of the page, for John and me, Cinda under FERPA,
Yeah.
there it says, you know, from a parent or eligible student, doesn't include guardian. I don't know.
Hi.
I wonder if, so we can talk to her and get clarification and find out whether or not that was done intentionally. We can call her and ask.
Okay.
Okay, along those same lines, sometimes we talk about non-custodial parent and sometimes we do. And I was kind of like, when does it apply and when doesn't it?
So
Can you
that's,
give me something to refer to?
Yes, sir.
What paragraph?
Page 1, access to student records at the bottom.
Mhm.
In the middle of that one, we say is made available to parents or guardians of students and non-custodial parents.
So let's say there's a separation and there isn't an order of protection, parents or a divorce even, parents have equal access regardless of where the child lives. So that's what that's speaking to, you know,
Right.
and in some cases, so a parental structure may look different for a situation like that where, you know, mom and dad get separated, divorced, dad goes to live with grandparents. Dad's job requires that he travels a lot, so grandparents are, you know, guardians in some respect. They may come in and request access to those things if it's all, you know, documented.
Right.
If the child
Yeah.
lives with mom, you know,
Yeah, I understand. I'm fine with it. I'm just,
So,
again,
so which is right? Parents or guardians or non-custodial parents? I mean, should that all be in there for this particular policy?
and then
So
there's a paragraph at the end, folks, that addresses that somewhere. I remember reading, going, okay, well, that covers everything then.
The Department of Education funded surveys or
That's not
challenge to student records.
The very last page of that policy has release of information to the non-custodial parent.
Yeah, I thought that kind of covered everything. Thanks, Tina. So do we?
Yeah,
So I almost wanted to go back and strike it out of that first paragraph under access to student records, because there it's not in the rest, but then there's this paragraph at the end that goes, hey, folks, non-custodial means, is captured for the whole policy.
So I'm gonna ask Ian if we're getting hung up on particulars because we're reading things in isolation versus looking at it and as the whole. And I'm gonna ask her about the specificity of some of those things to get clarity around it, because I think that, again, when we read the whole policy and we read the beginning and she struck through a bunch of that stuff, and then throughout the rest of the policy, some of that same language comes back into play. I'm gonna ask her why.
Great.
And if it's done intentionally so that, we have a rationale as to why, so that we're not chunking everything off and asking the same question,
Good.
and we get more clarity around why it's done that way.
Let's go to page 2. So Cinda, this is just a typo, okay? They're not a big deal. Exceptions of release of personal identity, then paragraph A, second to the last sentence. District will restrictive disclosure instead of restrict. Just a typo, I'm sure. The district will restrictive disclosure. You see it, John?
you're on page 2,
Yes.
the bottom,
Nope, right in the middle of the page, almost.
or right in
just
the
a
middle.
few-
Oh,
Page 2,
Uh,
paragraph A, the
so
last
that'd be,
sentence of,
just will
that-
restrict disclosure.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense otherwise.
another typo. Oh, let's see, page. Which page was that? Was that 2?
As 2.
3, 4. Page 5, military recruiter access. Okay, everybody can find military recruiter access. This, Tina, I think this is just a spelling thing. When you read military recruiter access, the releases, so the second sentence, elementary and secondary education, ESEA, shouldn't secondary be capitalized?
Okay.
So then this one hung me up. We go down to, so it's paragraph L, for audit evaluation purposes. The whole first paragraph is fine. Then the second paragraph says the district may occasionally disclose personal identifying information from education records without consent or authorized representatives of the entities listed above. Didn't we just cover each one of them individually? That just blew my mind when I read that. Mike, me, then I want to go back. Okay, well, what's listed above? Well, we already went through L.
Well, the comptroller general, the U.S. Attorney General, and Secretary of Education.
Well, it seems like A through L are specific, and then that paragraph just refers to A through L. Well, I said we could give away the information to those.
But isn't it adding the comptroller general and the attorney general?
I don't see that. Well, okay, so, well, but again, we just said we could give information to those too. So you're saying, John, it refers to the immediate paragraph above, that one.
Yeah,
order.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I do too. It's all under L.
Is it necessary then? Didn't we just say we could give, allows for disclosure?
Did it mention like the Attorney General?
Okay, let's spend just a moment on it. For audit evaluation purposes,
Two,
exception.
well, maybe that's something, this has obviously got to go back to the attorney. Maybe that's a question to ask.
Yeah, I think so. Mike or Tina, can you have them make a clarification on this?
On L,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
all of L.
Yep.
Who are they,
Yep.
who are they referring to?
in that second paragraph, yeah.
The entities listed above, who are they? Is it the immediate paragraph? Or is it everything above it?
Or can we strike the
Well-
whole, strike that whole sentence so it doesn't confuse people? Because it seems to me like we've already outlined it in the paragraph above.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it says without consent, though.
Well, we might want to add that up there or something, yeah. Okay, let's let the attorney take a cut on it.
I don't like that. I don't like it, period, but without consent. Why have all those policies if you, anyhow,
I'm with you, John.
I have a problem on page 6 with the U.S. Department of Education Funded Services.
I'm with you.
I don't want to get political with this, but is this based on our previous Secretary of Education and her philosophies? In other words, I don't like sex behavior or attitudes, illegal, antisocial, demeaning behavior, religious practices, etc. I mean, we don't ask for those things in the first place from students.
well, in some respects, you may, some grant funding opportunities do ask those questions. So if we were working with the Search Institute, like they're very tightly aligned to, national norms and national references. They do a survey called Attitudes of Behavior to find out what kids are up to with respect to demographics. There's a risk protective survey that the district participates in every other year. We use that data to go out and apply for different grants. So the religion piece, the sex behavior and all those things, those questions that are listed here, the things that they list here are often things that they will ask our adolescents about in terms of whether there's drug use that they're participating in,
Smoking.
risky sexual behaviors, teen pregnancy. You think about what we talked about last year, the risk protective survey from I think it was 2018 showed the farther east you go in the county, the higher the teen pregnancy rate is. So that all endears us to apply for more grant opportunities to do better with educating our students with those particular areas. So although they may be hot button topics, they do tie us to some grants. And I believe Bridget just received one, that really is going to focus in on some of those, where I think we were awarded $17,000 a year. Bridget was the lead writer, and it really is talking about how to prevent some of those situations through our health education programs.
Having seen those surveys before, I can honestly say, seeing students go through them, they're not awfully valid, because they don't answer the way probably it'll be an honest answer. But that's neither here nor there.
But I've seen the opposite. I mean, I've seen it benefit people as well because,
Yeah,
you know,
well.
there are groups that will throw the outliers out. So
True.
I don't disagree
True.
with you. I think that there are components where some kids don't take it seriously, and that's up to the people collecting the data to throw the outliers out and really focus in on what we can concentrate on so that the margin of error is minimal, excuse me.
The only thing in this, these 3 paragraphs is that parents do have the option of opting out.
Correct.
Otherwise, you know, again, I hate to get political in this, and I'm surely not anti, but it does sound a little bit restrictive, shall we say. For the,
And I agree with you. And we do, so for the risk protective surveys in particular, that are the ones that we've participated in recently, at the upper intermediate level through middle school and high school, there is a parent consent and a passive consent that's sent home to let people know. And I know that Scott worked with the University of Michigan this past fall on collecting some student data, you know, to try and get us into a study nationally, just to say, hey, here are some things that we think we could do differently, but there is parent consent.
Is this, when I read, when we're talking about these kinds of surveys, I don't see that does the student have to sign or indicate, yeah. Do we have to say what student submitted it?
I think they're anonymous.
Yeah, that's the word I was searching for.
Yeah,
Because.
at least in the
yeah,
past, well, they've always been anonymous. They don't sign anything
good.
other than gender and age.
There's a shall in there. We've been changing every other shall to will. Again, I could care less, but if we want to be consistent. Tina, it's in the second part of that. Department of Education funded surveys, the district shall make instructional materials available for inspection. Third
Okay.
sentence, the district shall obtain.
Well, I would hope that they would use shall. In other
I
words,
like
you will
shall.
do it.
We changed every other one to will.
I know it, I know. But this particular couple paragraphs, I don't know. It could be very important.
I don't know the difference between the 2 words. I always like shall, but we've changed it all to will, so.
Any
Well, we
others?
agree
Any
this-
other?
This policy is not going to be recommended. We're going to get clarification further, right? So I will not recommend
Right,
this one.
right.
Okay.
Well, we're out of time, but the next one, I think, 7242. She noted right at the top, this could probably not required
Right,
because we just captured it in the previous policy.
right. The board just has to approve it being eliminated, right?
Yeah, to me,
So,
it makes
let-
good sense.
yeah, me too. Let's get rid of it.
Okay, let's put that on the agenda and eliminate it, or,
No, John, you can't do that until
No, you
the other
can't.
one is ready because
yeah,
this one references, so you're just gonna have to, we can agree, we have to hold it in
Oh.
advance.
Well, that's too bad.
So the 71 or 7241, 7242, 7243 are all tied together. And then 7643, you know, is tied to those 3 as well. So I mean, if you look at her notes that she references things that are tied together.
Oh, yeah.
So for our purposes, you know, we could go to 7260 and look through that, but you know, it might behoove us to just stop and stay focused on the linear process, get
I think so.
clarification on
You're right.
the questions, and then pick back up, which, you know, unfortunately, it means that we're probably not going to get these completed by the end of the school year, which is not a big deal, but unless we did meet again And we had a first read, we're gonna adopt some on the 25th. And then do a first reading on the 25th as well. Because we only have one.
Mike, are we done? Is anyone still there?
Yeah,
I'm here. I'm
Okay.
okay
We lost Mike.
for a few more minutes. I'm good. I don't know where Mike is, but we have agenda setting at 10, so
Well,
I need to leave the house by 10 of.
according to our policy on adopting policies, we don't have to do a second read. We could adopt on one. If everyone is in favor of it, was a very simple type thing. That's not necessarily what we've done in the past, but we could do that.
I think we need to stick to what we
Yeah,
do.
I
the
agree.
two
I agree, but
reads. Yeah,
And you know, the old comment, if you want them bad, you get them bad. If we don't get them done by the end of the year, I'd rather get them right than slam them through.
well, let me ask you this, on 7260, which would have been the next one, rats, this darn computer jumps me. Does any, if we don't have any problems with any of these,
Our internet went down.
do you want,
there we go.
we could just set up another meeting time and do the rest of them?
Want to do that? I'll recommend the ones to the committee. We'll set up another meeting. I'll send out. Yeah, our internet went down. All of a sudden, everybody was gone.
Yeah. I thought you didn't pay the bill or something.
They limited it to an hour. That was it. You're done.
Yeah.
I thought there was a timer that just said, okay, this meeting's over, boom.
Done. Okay, so I'll look at the calendars and send out another meeting date.
Get a couple dates and times and
Yes.
then we
Alright.
can respond.
Yeah, I think that's important. And the other piece for us is, as you get farther into the policies that we have left to review, they're tied tightly to other things. And so as you work through the list, there are not a lot of wholesale changes that Ann's made. But I think we can ask her about some of the particulars in terms of things that were discussed today. I think that that's important for us to do. The one that I see that jumps out at me is 7513. She put a quite a bit of time and attention into that one, which is related to the students' medication and personal care items.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
I think that that's an important one. The rest of them are really minimal changes. It's just a matter of, again, do we want to add a second board meeting in June as well to get some of these things taken care of? There's also some extensive work when it comes down to child abuse and maltreatment, which makes sense, but that's something where, again, those two, between the medication and then the child abuse, those have the bulk of her attention in terms of what's been changed. So it's possible with a couple of more reads as a policy committee, we can, chunk these off in a little bit more efficient fashion. I guess
Are
it's
Are we
just,
allowed with the organizational meeting to put something like this in on a first read in July?
Yes, because we
You
have our regular meeting along with our reorganization.
Yeah, because
Right.
even though, the makeup of the board may be different and, who knows what. This policy committee still can make its recommendations and we're all going to be there, the three of us. Whether
Right,
we're
we're not
on
up-
the next policy committee or not, we're still going to be on the board. So we could
Right.
still move so that we maybe wouldn't need that second read in June. We could throw it into the second read on the July meeting.
I'm okay with that. I think that makes sense. I mean, the second June meeting wasn't on the calendar. That's a busy week with
Terrible.
graduation and everything else. So my only suggestion would be that we commit to getting through these so that we can be done with them. Because it's been over a year that these have been left idle. And so we just want to make sure we're moving them forward and knowing that between the three of you reading them, between Ann reading them, and then having the dialogue back and forth, that when we get them to the rest of the board, people feel comfortable with making the recommendations and accepting what's been done.
Yeah, and I think if we can do that with this group, there's the consistency that we've been working on policy this year. And we've already read it, should there be a new policy committee with different people on it next year, then they'd have to start over. So if
But
we
there-
can get done what we can get done, we should do that.
Tina always has new policies for the policy committee. So that would be an honest statement. This particular group can finish off what we have in front of us.
Yeah,
If new ones come in, there could be this group or a new group that's formulated
no,
to talk
right,
about new ones.
yeah.
So I think you're right.
So-
Consistency is important.
Are we thinking then we'll bring the two policies that we've agreed to today, Tuesday night, for the first read, which means on the 25th, those two policies will
I
be
have three
accepted.
policies, Michael.
We
There's
have
more than
three.
two.
Three, okay.
Three.
Yeah.
I got caught up in the McKinney-Vento one being so
Yeah.
long. So we got three that are going to Tuesday night for the
Right.
first read.
Right,
Then on the 25th, those three will be up for a second read and or approval.
right,
Also on the 25th, our intent would be to have potentially more policies for a first read,
right,
with the second read being on June 8th for those policies.
right.
And then anything that's left, our intent would be first read June 8th,
Mhm.
a second read and approval in July.
Right.
Right.
Okay, we're all in
That's-
agreement with that.
Ideal.
that's great.
Yeah,
That way we start the ground for the new year with whatever policies come in at needing change and attention. We're working with manageable bites versus this buffet of policies.
Please,
You heard about what we did a few years ago. We had the huge book. Every one of them.
I've heard of a neighboring district that went through a very similar process, so I think that this for us, is manageable. As Cindy said, it's consistent, and I think we can kind of get where we need to be so that, again, as they come up, it's 2 to 3 policies at a clip versus 12 to 15.
Right.
yes,
And-
and we assume that when we present them for first read, the board gets to hear any clarification that they need from the committee. and that it gets fixed so that it's ready for the second read. But if there is still an issue with the policy itself
They
on
can
a
push it
second
back.
read, then it goes back to committee. It doesn't.
Correct.
It doesn't get voted on. It doesn't get
Correct.
voted on until
We look it over
we
again and then,
solve the problem, right? Whatever it is. And sometimes a policy is adopted by a split board. You know, one person just doesn't like that policy for whatever reason and doesn't commit, but.
in the
majority
past,
votes.
we've had to refer back to the special ed department or the business department for clarification on policies that pertain specifically to them. And they know what laws are much and actual practices are much better than we do.
Yeah.
I think it
The
would
other
be
thing
helpful.
that happens sometimes is that board members will get beyond policy and want to get into the procedures of how it's carried out. And, that's not our problem. That's the superintendent's problem. We just say, this is what the policy is, you fix it. So sometimes that has issues too.
Well, that I would say, going back to that administrative procedures, we are working on producing that to making sure it's relevant and it coincides with policy. And again, it's a task that's pretty complex and pretty lengthy, but it's something where my goal would be similar to the policies, that by July or early August, I can turn something over, and then administratively people can look to see how they parallel the policy. So actual practices are aligned, supporting our policies.
Yeah.
Cinda, I'm worried about your speeding ticket. But very quickly, I think we could have this discussion again tomorrow at the workshop, because I think every member needs to understand it. That first reading, that's the time they should have already read it. That's when we
That's right.
discuss it,
That's
because
right.
I don't think everyone's totally on board with that.
Yeah, sometimes I think they think, oh, we're just getting it,
I agree.
but
So
it's not. It's a first read.
Yeah, you need to
Yeah.
have already read that and come to the meeting with
Absolutely.
questions.
Yeah. And the nice thing about a first read is that, you bring up a question that when I read it, I didn't think about, or it didn't occur to me. And it gives me a little time to process before that second read with what it's about. So, yeah, you're right, Paul.
Okay, should I call the state
Okay.
patrol? Should I call the state patrol and tell them to not look at 104?
I'm
Take your
going,
time, Cinda.
I'm going Ridge Road.
She's coming for you, Mike. Look out.
All
Hey,
right.
I hope
All right.
right. I'm gonna call Sheriff Burtz and say, I know what she drives. Keep an eye out for her.
Look out for the gray Jeep.
That's
All
right.
right.
All right, I'll let you guys
Just tell them
go.
to clear the road for me.
That's right.
We'll see you all
Goodbye,
tomorrow.
all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Uh-huh.